Speaking of the United Nations, we've just learned that Israel has reportedly reopened talks with the UN to safely deport thousands of African asylum seekers to Western countries. This is the same deal Prime Minister Netanyahu infamously announced as the best possible one last month, and then completely scrapped less than 24 hours later after backlash, of course, from members in his coalition. ILTV's Brett Allen Smith is here with more. And Brett, given what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, how should we be taking this?
Well, for one, I think it's pretty safe to say that the government has really kind of hit a roadblock here. You know, as we've discussed many times, that original plan to deport nearly 40,000 asylum seekers was just never going to be realistic. I mean, that whole plan sparked massive outrage from, doctors, diplomats, rabbis, even Holocaust survivors all over the world. And not only that, but Israel's own court system repeatedly blocked those deportations because they were, told that they were unconstitutional. So if it's true that Netanyahu has put this deal with the UN back on the table, probably it means that they've kind of run out of, other options.
Well, obviously, when this UN was, or this plan was announced back in April, it was seen as a huge victory for the African asylum seeker community. The government refers to them as illegal infiltrators here, but the majority, who are mostly Christians from Eritrea and Sudan, would typically be accepted as refugees almost anywhere else in the world. Now, if the government brings this deal back, would Israel be required to accept some as refugees in exchange for a resettlement?
Right. I mean, almost definitely, yes. So under the previous deal, the UN would have resettled about half of those asylum seekers to Western countries, like Canada or the U.S., in exchange for Israel providing at least temporary asylum to the other half. And Netanyahu is going back to the negotiating table now after very publicly reversing and then canceling the deal.
Yeah.
So the UN says that it still wants something like this to work out because, after all, these are tens of thousands of lives currently in limbo here. But if Netanyahu is hoping for, a more favorable ratio here, I'm not sure if he's really coming from a good bargaining position right now.
Yeah, probably not, especially since Israel's deals with Uganda and Rwanda to accept migrants deported against Israel also fell apart rather publicly. Still, Netanyahu faced backlash because he had originally promised to expel every last asylum seeker from the country. And at least two-thirds of the country was actually in favor of that original controversial plan to remove men, women, and children by force if necessary.
Sure, but at the same time, though, I will say that these same polls reflected rather badly on how Netanyahu handled that big 180 when he canceled that deal. So I think that the better interpretation of these statistics, my point of view, is that your average Israeli does want to see a solution. And it does want to see it done according to the law in a way that does reflect, the Jewish spirit of hospitality to refugees. And that's why so many people just want to see this deal. They see the UN deal as not just the best solution, as Netanyahu himself famously called it. They see it as the only real solution. Yeah. And legally, the government may have no other choice but to agree with that by now.
Well, we'll have to see if it really works out this time. Thanks for the update, Brett.
Of course.